Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, is it okay we start?
Yes. Okay now.
So, good afternoon, everyone. So, today, yeah, for the next, let me say, 4 weeks, you will be doing SQL. Basically, SQL is just, how am I going to put it? It's structural query language that, as a data analyst, we all need. So, basically, structural query language is quite, SQL is quite big. Yeah, basic principles just need to follow for you to be embedded in the whole thing is you don't need the entire SQL knowledge. You just need a part of it for you to be to work as a data analyst. So I'm going to share my screen now. So confirm if you can see my screen. So basically, as a data analyst, we started with what you've been doing before is more or less like visualization. So which is you're using your Excel to do more of, you've already been given the data and you're doing more visualization about it. Sometimes when you get to some companies, you may not have access to data already. You need to do what is called extraction. And that's where SQL comes in the long run. So you need to know or have a good understanding of how to get this data from the sort of maybe like server or database where you're being given the database of the company is based. And from there, you do what is called you extract this data as the need may be. And from there, you do other things you want to do. So in analyzing the data, it starts with what is called the extraction, or what you've been exposed to with Excel is more of the visualization. There are other things you can do, other tools you can use for visualization. But once you extract the data, you do what is called analysis. And to do analysis of data, you can also still use Excel. You can use your Python. Once you've done your analysis, then you want to do the visualization. Still use Excel, but Excel is sort of limited. When it gets to certain points, Excel cannot handle something. That's when the software like Tableau comes in, software like Power BI comes in. There's another one I learned about over the weekend. Everybody just trying to develop their own. So, and when we talk about SQL in the real sense, and which is structural query language, it's just a programming language that you use to talk to database. Assuming you have your database or somewhere here, and so many information are here, and you want to speak to this database, the only language you understand is this language. And as you're speaking to it, you're doing what is called your extraction. You're actually extracting some particular data you actually needed for you to be able to do analysis. So in the real sense, where those data are stored is called portable database. And the database itself is a collection of data organized in such a way that it's easy for you to access, it's easy for you to manage, and it's easy for you to. So that's where Excel comes with a limitation. You know, when you check your Excel, sorry, let me stop sharing this. So when we talk about Excel right now, Excel in itself, I think it ends about maybe 1,000 and I think 1,000, sorry, 1,000,000 two for something. That's when it says end. So that's the limitation of it. So imagine that you have a database that is more than 1,000,000. So Excel at that point to be very, very slow. So and once Excel is slow, it becomes a problem for you to be able to analyze. And that's when the issue of our SQL, which is being stored in the database. So from there, and they will tell you that, okay, database is more or less a container that stores data. I've explained before. And the good thing about the database in itself is it allows for multiple users. You see, before Excel has this limitation whereby you can only use Excel on your system. But now there is a Google aspect of it whereby you can be using online. But there's still a limitation to it. But for imagine what it is called, an MTN like as a company. So MTN as a company itself is trying to use Excel. It's trying to get all your message, your voice recording, and all these things. It's trying to get from you, and you want to store it on Excel. It will be so cumbersome to the extent that they may not be able to access it. So that's where the issue of this database comes. So it's being stored probably in their server, and it's easy for people to query it. It's easy for people to manage. It's easy for people to do an update. It's easy for you to do an insert. It's easy for you to create some new users and things like that. But for Excel, it becomes so difficult and it's not something that is easy. And you have to be opening different worksheets for you to integrate all these things together. So that's the limitation whereby Excel brings involved and things like that. And when it comes to database itself, database gives you more of what's called security. And because if you don't have a good knowledge of database, which most people don't, and it's very hard for you to even go inside and say you want to steal it. Mostly everybody has a good knowledge about it. It is for you to even open Excel. Once your Excel can be opened, even though you put a password, people can just copy it and save it somewhere, save it in an account, and go and look for a way to. But imagine you want to steal a database of the company. One, you need to have a good understanding about what's the database, which type of database that you use for you to be able to do in there. So, and once you open those databases, not something you can see on the disk. Is somewhere hidden whereby you have to use the structural query language to actually bring out data from where it's been stored. So it's for database itself, it gives you a good knowledge about what is called. It gives you security when you're trying to use it. And just trying to go to this school. So, and for database, there are different kind of database management system, which is like the software people use storing their data. So it's called the DBMS. So DBMS is database management system. So it's the software itself, the general software. Once a company hacks or someone hacks you, what DBMS are you using? So you can tell them probably is Oracle. can tell them probably is MySQL, which you're going to use. You can tell them SQL server. You can tell them is SQL, SQL Azure, and the rest of it. So Oracle itself is a paid version, which is quite expensive. But the free version that is open source that we're going to be using is it's quite the reason why people adapt to this is quite flexible. It's work with any platform of people that have a good knowledge about what's called the HTML, a text makeup language, PHP, web. People tend to use MySQL more because they tend to work with all these platforms very well. I don't know. Are you guys getting me? Because everybody seems to be quiet.
Yes.
Yes, we are following.
Okay. So that's just it. So, and what differentiates a DBMS, what's it called, software or application itself from Flatfile? So Flatfile is your normal Excel. And your normal Excel allows for limited users. But for all these database management system applications, they allow for multiple users. Very good example is bank. So you have bank in across the whole entire country. In some states, they have multiple branches. Some banks have extended to some African countries. Some banks have extended to Europe. Means that imagine those banks want to be used. Everybody's just going to do that. That's when the issue of database management systems. People are using Oracle. Most companies tend to use. Some people tend to use that. So it depends on the company we need to, or you find yourself. So for the DBMS application software itself, it allows for multiple users to work seamlessly. So imagine everybody is querying the database or data warehouse at the same time. So Excel will not give you that flexibility, even though it's online. So what I'm changing, what I'm updating, somebody may be doing the same thing. It will be a lot of mixed up at the end of it, and you're not going to be achieving the same. So that's when the difference between this one comes in. And like I said before, for DBMS, which is all this Oracle itself, you can use it for SMEs, for small, for medium, or for large scale enterprise. And what the another good thing about a DBMS application, it removes what's called redundancy. So in Excel, you can tend to put in different kind of entries, if I may put it that way. Like, okay, there are some basic principles that goes with this MySQL, structural query language. Sometimes if you want to write a name in the same cell, you can write Ojo John. Or MySQL is not going to allow because you're putting space in between. It's not going to allow. It's either you differentiate it with first name and last name, or you tend to put Ojo underscore. Because it's seeing that space as a character on it, so it's not going to allow it to start. So those are the redundancy is going to remove from you, all those numbers that are repeating and stuff. So there is a principle that my structural query language tend to follow in order for it to achieve this. And like I said before, it's very expensive, but just the free version, which is MySQL or MySQL Lite, well, that is for Microsoft or so those are the ones that are not expensive, but you can't use it for your organization because it has its own limitation, but you can use it for the purpose of practicing. Then for implementation purpose, yeah, it's very easy for you to implement, just for you to have a good understanding of how this thing works. So once you know how it works, you'll be able to implement the process seamlessly. So why MySQL? We tend to choose MySQL based on the fact that it's an open source. It's quite free. People company that's it's very easy for you to learn because it's more or less like you speaking English. Select this from this. Query, you want to probably query the database. We're going to go into all those ones later on. So you just say, show me database. It's more or less like an English language, but you need to know the fundamentals of why you're doing this. And that's when we're trying to put it through this. And like I said before, it works on different platforms. Like you want to integrate my SQL with the HTML, text markup language, or the PHP to web development. It works seamlessly with on all these platforms. So, and there's some basic principles which you so did you understand what I've said so far? Because this is just more of the hello, are you guys with me?
Yes, 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 sure.
So when you're talking about my SQL in itself, there's it's for Excel. When you're doing it, you're just doing it on the fact that it's not something relational. When you're creating a, what's it called? An entry on my SQL, though it's not going to be your main sole role as a data analyst, that's going to be the work of database administrator. You get, but you need to just have a good understanding so that when they're talking about it, you can also contribute or say something about it. So for a database, there's what we call, it must be something that is relational. That means that if I have a table and if I have two tables, I need to look for something that link one table to the other tables for me to be able. So I don't need sometimes to go into table 2 to be able to query some things from it. Because they are more relational. I should be able to use my query language, which is my SQL, to bring information whereby I'm in table 1 or table A, to bring information connected to table B and get some information from table B and make those information of table A and table B together because they are what relational. And that's what we're able to identify for students table, enrollment, and classes. We're able to identify that there's for students, there's what we call student ID, which we're still going to do, which is primary key. And for enrollment, there's enrollment ID. And for classes, there's class ID. So if you can see, it's trying to say that for this student table, student ID, I can actually link to enrollment by linking it to the student ID of, and I'll get class ID and able to input it under this student table. Same thing with class. There's class ID and there's class ID. But for students and class, you cannot see any relationship between them, but I can use what is called the indirect relationship to also get information from it. Because I'm having class ID here under enrollment. And under enrollment table, and there's a relationship which is student ID and student ID under students enrollment. So I can actually link this, gets information that is inside these classes, which is class ID, because there's an indirect relationship with what classes and students. I'm still going to expose you to all this. This one is just the talk. So when we go into the explanation of detailing of all these things, you have to see what you're talking about. Then in Excel, like this one I highlighted is called your column, your row, and this is your column. But for database, you always call it field. Your role is your field. Sorry, for database, for SQL, your role is called record, and your column is called field. Call it attribute. I'll say it again. Okay, let me just write it down. For Excel, you have your role. It's more or less, you're still doing the same thing, but people tend to come up with different ideas of making sort of a difference between one kind of software and the other. So for Excel, you have to use your role and use it. Whereby for your SQL, use your record field. You see more or less talking about this in one. So, and when you're talking about the relational database, there's what we call one-to-one relationship, one to many relationships, many one many to many. In all sense, try to avoid this when you're trying to, because okay, when you get to a very good example of this one is, you know, you've been taught pivot table in Excel.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when you're doing your pivot table, what you're doing is you're doing one-to-many relationship, or you're doing one-to-one relationship. So a very good example is you have under departments, and you have maybe 1,000 entries or 1,000 want to everything not. Under that department, you may not probably have finance, have accounts, have marketing, what's it? Everything will be distributed among the 10 employee, 1,000 employee, but we only have under departments these four departments. So when you pick departments inside your column, it shows something like this. And if you now pick probably the salary, you will now pick. So what it's doing is it's taking one-to-one relationship and saying, sum everybody under finance and give me the value. You will sum everybody under account, give you the value. Sum everybody under this, give you the value. Sum everybody under this, and give you. And you now use this one to create your visualization. So basically, Excel is under pivoting, is using this relationship to create this pivot table that we always bring about. And after this pivot table, we now use it to create your visualization. Do a bar chart of this Instagram, trend, and everything. So this is more or less like is taking the relationship of this department and trying to link it to what are the salary entitled to everybody in finance, and you will now sum it up. For account, it will sum it up. For marketing, it will sum it up. IT, it will sum it up. Same thing you can do. What other things can you do? Probably you have you're into sales, your company is into sales of particular goods, and you want to know which of the days you people are making huge sales, you'll be able to make a decision. So you just put your, what was it called, your days under your column here, and you have your Monday up to your Friday, it makes sense. And from that time, you now put sales under your value pivot table, and it will now sum everything for Monday, give you everything for Tuesday, everything for Wednesday, everything. This is building a relationship of one-to-many in order to arrive at a value. So same concept applies to this now. That's when you're building your database, you need to have, when you see the data, you need to have a good knowledge of what am I doing? What did I want to arrive at? This one will become very useful when you get to your Power BI. So because at the end of the day, you'll be given Excel and you want to sort of link these two tables together and create sort of like a relationship between the two of them. You have to do what is called a unique key, which is your primary key, to link some things with other tables, so that when you're picking it, it can actually refer to the fact that though this table is not here, but it's another table, and the question you're asking connects to table 1, table 2, and you will get those data out. But you have to build that relational database for it. So at this point, that's why they put this on many-to-many relationship. In all costs, try to avoid many-to-many relationship, because you may lose out on certain information that you're trying to get out. So you need to stick to one-to-many relationship or many-to-one relationship, which I'm going to show you below. Any question on this? Let me show you this one. So this, hello, are you guys with me? So this is what I'm trying to talk about. Like, okay, I just queried this one and I put it here just for explanation purposes. Forget about what is on top, this city stuff, but just look at what is this city ID, city's country ID, the last update. So when you move down a little bit, you can see that there is a relationship. This one on top here and this one here. Because there is what is country ID that can be used to link the two of them together. So we can say this is a one-to-one relationship. And if I go down again, okay, if I go down again, I see for this table here, which is customer table, I see customer ID, store ID, and the rest. What can I use to link to this one? That is there. This one is customer list, and this one is customer ID. Is there any correlation between these two? Is there anything that we can use to link these two together? This customer and customer list. Is there anything common between them?
I don't see anything.
Can't see. But in a real sense, this ID will have been common, but the name may not depict. But if you see what is inside of it when we start querying it, you see there's a commonality between it. So you can actually link this customer and customer list together by using customer ID. So he's not going to, in essence, be looking at this customer ID and ID. He's going to be looking at the entering of the data inside those ID or the customer ID. Can he find any relationship between it? He will now bring it together for you to be able to query. Probably I want to query the zip code that is not inside the customer. Yeah. So that is what this will do. And so to move henceforth, for this one here, like I said, one-to-one relationship, but for you to be able to link two tables together, there is what we call primary key. Foreign key. So for every table, there must be a unique identifier, which is always your primary key. One is always very unique, and it does not have duplicates. So that's the essence of this primary identifier, unique. So you refer it to as what? Primary key. So, and again, a primary key in a table can be a secondary or foreign key in another table. And a very good example is this course ID. Under the table for course, there's course ID, which is a primary key here. But under the students table is a what? Is a foreign. So if I want to link students table to course table, I will just use this course ID to link the two together. For me to get the first name and the last name and link it to their course. So for every table you're creating or every table that you have, there must be a unique identifier in that table. Those are one of certain rules you're going to explain as you go on. And okay, foreign key, I've explained it. Foreign key is just a key that can be used to link to other key, which can be a foreign key in one place, and when it comes to another place, it becomes a primary key. So the foreign key is more or less that this is one that creates the relationship between table 1 and table 2. And when you talk of candidate key is more or less that, okay, I've looked into this, my table, and I noticed that the first name and the last name, there is nobody bearing the same name. First name, nobody is bearing the same last name. So I can actually use any of these two as my primary key. But in the real sense, you don't do it. Maybe for theoretical purpose, that's right. Because there is nowhere in the world that you will not see somebody that is bearing first name that is the same, last name, even in your same class. If you can see, probably if you are working with the data that you know the data is so small, so you can actually make this your primary key or this your primary key. So anyone that you take can be used as what. But for composite is just the fact that you notice that the first name, somebody's are bearing the same first name, but nobody's last name is the same. So I can tend to combine the two to make what is called a primary key. I'll combine first name and the last name to make what a primary key. That's what we call your composites. In the real sense, people always stick to this primary key and this foreign key to be able to do the analysis. This one is just for purpose of for you to have a good understanding of when they're asking you about, you know what's the primary key foreign key. Any question on that?
Please, can you go over the candidates again?
Okay. So for candidate key, I said every table like this must have a unique identifier. So most of the time you use something that you're probably you're linking your numbers with alphabet. Sometimes people just tend to use only numbers. Now even use your serial number 1, 2, 3, 4. You won't just repeat it. But for candidates key, you're trying to say that I've looked into my table and I've discovered that nobody in the class or based on the entry you've put in there is bearing the same first name and the same last name. So instead of me using student ID as my primary identifier, I will use either first name or last name. So anyone I query, I can use it to link to other tables. But to me, I've not come across this in the sense that probably I've not worked in organizations that are way too work. Because people tend to stick to something that can uniquely identify someone. So your unique identifier as in Nigeria right now is your NIN. And that's what they've been trying to do way back. So that's why people that travel abroad, you've given them a unique identifier. Once you commit any crime, you run over the, what's it called? Speed limit and blah, blah, blah. You probably capture your face, you identify it, and you said, okay, this is the person. With the unique identifier, they know your address, they know your phone number, they know everything about you. You just bring it out. So most of the time, you don't use your first name or the last name, but for theoretical purpose or explanation purpose, if you identify two tables in a table and you identify two columns that are not bearing the same thing, you can actually tend to use any of the two, probably the first name or the last name. But for composite means that I have to join two things together. Probably I noticed that for first name, there's some similarity, but for last name, there's no similarities. So I will join the first name and the last name together. I will now use it as what? A unique identifier. So that is what we call your composite. So it's just your knowledge of and all that works here. When I say and, A and B, that means you need to meet the criteria for A. I need to meet the criteria for B before giving me the results. If I say or, A or B, that means it can either meet, if you meet the criteria for A, it give me the result of what I'm making. If you meet the criteria for B, it give me the result I'm making. And if you meet the criteria for both, give me the result. That is just the difference between your candidates and any of this one can serve as a unique identifier. But for composite, I've actually linked the two together in order for you to stand as a unique identifier for me to be able to use it. Exactly.
Yes, sorry, please.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Please, did you explain the primary key and the foreign key earlier? I guess I missed that.
Let me just go over that one.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sorry, well,
Yeah.
so it means that in practice, candidate key is not even supposed to be used at all.
Some people may use it if you're not using a very big data. You get. So you're not supposed,
Yes.
it's not that you're not supposed to use it. I can't say that. You get. But the point is that some theoretical things you'll be exposed to. And people may, over time, people may develop another new ideas of how you can make use of that.
Okay.
So, but it's very rare. I've not seen. I've not gone to everywhere, but the little one I've seen, most of your identifier is always in numbers. Numbers, or they combine it with alphabets. So you'll be seeing like this one now, LOO something, LOO something. Hey, a very good example is the plate number of your car.
Yeah.
You get it? It's
Yes,
very
yes.
unique. So the one they are now bringing out right now, that one is the one that can capture, camera can capture it. And because you put in your detail, they will just send you. And that's what they do abroad. Once you do speed, blah, 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 if you can't capture your face, your plate number is there. So people that are smart, they block the plate number, both front and back, and probably they cover their face, but they will still look for a way to track you and give you your ticket. That would be probably like a double fine. So in that one, they may have created so many other things to identify you. Probably they will use your fingerprint. You can use your facials. You can use your tongue. So many things that will identify you in the long run. But you have a unique identifier that if anybody should put it on the system, it will just bring everything about you. The day you enter the country, the day you say you're going, where you've gone to, this is your shop and things like that. So people that are going into serious hackers, they tend to do more of cash rather than using their ATM. And that's what brought out this guy, Hush Puppy. Somebody just came to the room and able to download some things. He has been anonymous for a while. Always tried to give in cash, do this, do that. Able to send somebody in. He was able to download some things and he got the IP address of the system and he uploaded it for there. They just track him anyway. He goes IP address, probably the laptop. So most of the time, people that are smart tend to go away from certain things because they know that the internet doesn't lie. So back to the question of primary key and foreign key. So we said that for primary key, so we say for every table, there must be a unique identifiers. That if I query this, I should be able to link it to other tables. And one very good characteristic of a primary key is it's always unique. There's no duplicate. That's when you know that this is a primary key. There's no duplicate to it. But for foreign key, there's a duplicate to it. So, but foreign key is always what is being used to link your primary key of a table to another table. Like if you see here, this is a cost ID. It's a foreign key here, but under cost table, which is this one, is a primary key. But there will be no repetition. That means they can say that a student is doing more than a course. Is offering maybe similar courses having similar ID. But when you're creating the course itself as a table, it must have a uniqueness. It must be a primary key. And probably the course name will now be the one that will now bring the number of courses, or probably the person is repeating certain courses out from the database. So for your primary key is more or less the uniqueness that is the characteristic of a primary key. Whereby for foreign key, it can be a duplicate. But to link a table to another table, you always use your foreign key of the table with the primary key of another table.
Sorry, my question is, that means the foreign key that you've used to link to another table must have unique variables. There must be no repetition, so that they can stand as a primary key in the other table. Trying to understand that now.
So for in the other table that is in foreign, it can have a duplicate. You can repeat it. But when it now comes to table E, it will now be primary, but it will not be duplicated. I'm trying to look for good examples to use here.
I think you will see a practical example to broaden our understanding.
So, okay, let me see. Right now. Okay, so okay, let me use this one. So if you can see here, this table that is here in the middle, most of it are foreign key.
Yes.
But if you now see under time, you can see time ID is a primary key here, or is a foreign key here. Same thing with location. Location ID under locations table is a primary key, but under the one in the middle, which is item key, is another table. Okay, sales. Sales table is what is a foreign key. So what we are trying to say is for you to connect a table to the other one. Let me see. Oh, I'm trying to look like so like this one, like we said, that this is a time table. It has time ID. But in another table of sales, we have key, item ID, branch ID. But for me to link this time to this sales, I will look for what is the relationship between the two of them. I will look very well and I will now see that is time ID. So I can actually query some things from this table, in the sense that I have this time ID on this table. So what will be the linkage will now be this time ID from here to this place. And this is what we call your one-to-many relationship. It can be linked to different tables. When we start doing the query itself, I think you will understand now, because at that point, you will not see that, okay, I'm trying to query this table because, okay, I want to get information from this table. So what I will just do is I'll just say, probably select time ID, day, time ID, days, select branch ID, select quantity ID from this timetable. Join. I will join it to this sales table where time ID is equals to time ID. So it will go to this table and say, okay, what's the correlation? Okay, there's a time ID, yes. And it's going to bring out the data that contain time ID, contain days. It will go to this one, bring out the data that contain branch ID, contain quantity ID. Because it's seen like where this relationship is being joined together. But don't worry, when we started doing the query itself, you now see what you're trying to do. Just for knowledge purposes, know that there is a primary key, and when it goes to another table, it becomes a foreign key. And it is the primary key of that table and the foreign key of that table that we can use to link it together. There must be something that you can use as a reference in another table for you to be able to do this. That you can get information from those. So if it is Excel now, you'll have pick this one, pick this one, pick this one in another different sheet and put it together, start doing your analysis. But this one, which is just your simple query of this, and actually bring it out, and you're good to go. But don't worry, when we start doing it, today we're just going to expose you to the basic things you need to know. And I think from next week, start doing some basic query. People that are having challenges with maybe installation, probably you give like 30 minutes. So I think so at least, do you have a partial knowledge about primary key, foreign key, candidate key, and components?
Yes.
So when we do more of the query of it, so we get to know the understanding of it. So okay, then when we're doing SQL in the real sense, there's what we call first normal form, second normal form, and third normal form. So if you see here, it's just saying, okay, can anybody tell me what is wrong with this thing? Based on your knowledge of Excel that we've taught you, know there are some basic rules in Excel. Don't match cell, don't make sure that the rows are unique. Not like you put name and name, or you can identify your first name and last name. And what other things? So those basic rules you're given in Excel. What do you think is wrong with this table? Let's take a good look.
The physical address arrangement on the first cell.
So you said what?
I mean the physical address.
Okay.
Number 4. I suppose it's supposed to start before First Street, so that it will align with Third Street. I don't know. That's what I can spot.
Okay, that's fine. So any other person?
I can see Robert Phil appearing
Twice.
having different details.
Okay, what other things can you see?
I
You're
think it's
getting
the merging of the full names. Maybe they would have separated surname and other names. So that way we would know whether Robert Phil is the same person or different person.
Okay, so hello. So under category on Gina Jones, I can see action. On Robert Field, I can see romance, and another Robert Field, I can see action. So I guess I don't know. Maybe that could be duplicate romance, action. I don't know.
you guys are getting close, very close. Look.
Another observation
Okay.
is that it appears that the two Robert Field are different persons, but there is no way to distinguish them per se, or rather, it doesn't look like we have a way of distinguishing them.
Okay, great, nice try, to be very frank. And basically, you've identified this one, full name. Anybody can put full name, is fine. However, what is here is this movie rented. You can see that they put two movies here. Janet Jones rented two films, and they put it in the same cell. So that's why you now see this action. And for Robert Field, which is the same person but rented on different person, you can see Clash of the Titan is only action. So this was supposed to have been separated. And that's what they did here. So first normal form is saying that every of your record must be unique. Every of your record must be unique. So they've said for Janet Jones, same address, Pirates of the Caribbean, Mrs. Janet Jones, same address, Clash of the Titan, Mrs. So why are you putting Pirates of the Caribbean, Clash of the Titan together in the same set? You need to have separated. So for every record you're doing, like we identified before, your row for SQL, we call it your file column, call it your field. So you're supposed to have what separate every record. It must be unique. Every record you put in there. Why the second normal form should be talking about is from every table, there must be a unique identity. So that's when robot field will now be separated from the other robot field. It's because of the address we're able to discover that is not the same person. So with this, our unique identifier now, which is their membership ID, we're able to identify that robot field are two different. That's what this second normal form is all about. That's for every record, for every table, you need to have a unique identity. And the last one, which is, any question?
Yes, sorry, please, only. Okay, so so the category, that should be the field, the column, now was not added into the second table when it was separated, right? So
Which
there was
one?
no need, the category, okay, the first table that we're looking at, what was wrong with it?
Okay.
That there was action, romance, action.
Okay.
Because my guess is because we have romance and action, they're not unique identifier. Is that why it wasn't
No,
represented?
they just stop at this place. So they're supposed to put action. No.
Oh, okay.
The unique identifier here is for the second normal form we're trying to look at, which is
okay.
one. So they now give them a membership ID.
Okay.
So that if Robert Phil for the first person living in 3rd Street 34, like you're giving order that if you return your film late or after 48 hours, you're supposed to return the film. If the time is above 48 hours, you pay a fine of certain amount. You will not go and charge robot fee that is 50. So with your unique identifier for 2 and 3, you will know that is 2 that is going to be charged, not the 3. And that's what the second normal form is talking about. So your question is, they just stop at this saturation, just illustration.
Okay, thank you. Noted. Just wanted to be clear. Thanks.
So, the third one is talking about, so you need to now break table into smaller forms. Like the fact that you've created unique identifier now. You can now see that they now created membership ID with the full name, with the physical address, and with the salutation ID. They now create another one, which is membership ID and movie rented. So instead of you having like this kind of Excel as a table, you can actually break it down into something, a city, break into customer, break into payment. Instead of I don't know the Excel they used to teach you guys for when they're taking your Excel. You can see some long kind of in one sheet, but in SQL, they advise you to break it into smaller ones for easily words when people are looking at it, retrieving and things like that. So that's what this odd normal form is talking about. You need to divide those big chunks of table into smaller ones. Though you may have, there's one table that will be having like very big number of tables. So most of the time they call that one I think the dimension. So that people can actually, from there, they will now break it into those smaller ones. Like a very good example is if you want to have a customer details. Customer details will cost across city, the money, the kind of ATM they're living, using, the state, and blah, blah, blah. Then from there, you can now start breaking it. State table. You can break it into payment table. You can break it into region table. So that the customer details itself will serve as a big table that other smaller ones can connect to. So you now create another unique ID for those ones. That's when this second normal form comes in. But the third normal form is now saying the big kind of data you have, break it into smaller ones so that you'll be able to use the smaller ones to connect to the big data and get your data out. That's it. So that's what this third normal form is all about. So any question on this? We'll move to so now you have a good understanding of how data is being built, what are the primary key, the composite, and the rest of it. So for SQL in itself is just a programming language. And don't get scared when you hear the programming language. Are we going to programming? No. it's more or less like you're speaking English, but there are some basic principles that applies to this structural query language that you need to know. So like I said before, for the, they call it relational database management system. For the relational database management system that we identified before that, we have Oracle, MySQL. They all use SQL as their programming language. But there are some these small differences in the process, and which the differences always comes when you want to connect to the server. There are different ways for SQL server that you use to connect to the server or connect to the databases. For my SQL, it's quite different. But when you now talk about the SQL itself, you call it syntax. You call it syntax, which is all those your selects, your create, your updates, and things like that, is more or less the same thing. But when you now want to query, like connect to the database itself, check the table and things like that, then there can be some differences. So, but in the general, it's being called SQL. So some people will now call it MySQL. Some people call it SQL server. Some people call it the light and the rest of it. That is just the software on its own. But the programming language you use, like Java, you all know, HTML, you all know. For database, you use SQL. So we go to the next one that talks about what are the benefits of these our SQL units. Why should you use SQL? Why, as a data analyst, you need a good knowledge of SQL? Because in the recent before, I think they don't see it as being important, but now they now see it as being important in the sense that your boss has given you an assignment or something to do. Please get me the database or give me the visualization of the sales for last week. And you know, this data are being stored in the database or the data warehouse. How can you get it out? So you now have to go and meet your database administrator, now help you. Sometimes he's telling you I'm busy, come back later, but your own work is at stake. Why not have a good knowledge about these things? So when you have a good knowledge about it, it makes life more easier for you. So you just said, Oga, don't bother. Just give me what and access to the database. Because even though you have this knowledge, if you're not giving access to the database, not be able to create. Just, Oga, you know what? I know what I need. Just give me access to this database. I'll query it and I'll do what I want. Just give me access. Once it grants you that access to the database, you just go in there, query it, do your select, your joint, anything you want to do. Query the database, get your data, clean it, then do your visualization. So it limits the burden you're putting in the database. So those are one of the benefits of learning this SQL itself. So benefits of the SQL is quite secure in the sense that compared to Excel, anybody can just take your Excel, put it inside a flash, and you can put what's it called, SQL in a flash. I will have sent the downloaded software to you but you can't because it's quite heavy. It's not something you can put in a flash. You have to have a good knowledge about it. SQL is much faster than Excel, very much faster. You see the microseconds is giving you minutes. It can give you millions of data at the same. It allows users to define the data in the database and manipulate it. People have this knowledge that when they say manipulation, they think about Yahoo and manipulated result for us, and nobody's happy. But in the real sense, SQL, when you say manipulate comes with what is called, we're doing sort of updates you're doing sort of delete, you're doing sort of insert into it. Is not in the negative aspect you're always looking at it. That we are all familiar with. SQL is easy, fast, provide more security, easy to manipulate and analyze it. Allow user to create, drop data and think. Yes, instead of you just clicking, you can actually drop, create more table very easily. You retrieve data and perform analysis with query, which make a lot of sense. And SQL also separate analysis from data. So basically, when you want to have this knowledge, SQL in itself can be classified into, there are so many, but they now group it into three. Data query language, data manipulation language, data definition language, data control language, and data transactional language. And for data query language, which is the only thing you do with that is select. For manipulation, you do insert, update, and delete. For data definition language, you do create, alter, and drop. For data control language, you do grant and revoke. In transaction language, you do begin, commit, and rollback. As a data analyst, all what you need is just this sentence. The rest of it, this one is from database. However, we are still going to expose you to some of all this, but you will not be able to do it. And if you see here, that's what I'm talking about, that if you just go to your database administrator and said, please grant me access. Once the person just grants you access, it will just grant you access to what to select. And that's all we can do. It will not grant you access to insert, update, to delete, or to do all these ones. It will not. Because you can go and drop, delete certain things you're not supposed to delete. And you know, database itself is relational. Is relational. So if you're thinking you're deleting from a table, my sister, my brother, you have actually deleted from the entire database. Is relational. So a database administrator will only grant you the select permission access to the database. And that's all what you need as a database analyst. That's what you need as a database analyst. Just your select. I want to select this also people from people of customer. And it brings you out, you pick it, you export it in a CSV file, change it to your Excel file, and do your analysis. If you want to take it to Tableau, if you want to take it to Power BI, it's fine. So basically, these are the SQL classification language that you will be exposed to. However, as a data analyst, the only thing you need is your DQL, data query. We will expose you to the inserts, how you can create, how you can drop some things. But for this revoke, I don't think MySQL will allow that because there's a limitation to it. Or you don't even need it at the end of the day. So this one now, revoke, grant is you give people as a revoke is you take the access back. When you say, I think commit is more, is for Excel is save. Save. But in SQL or MySQL database, use commit. Once you commit, it's being saved in the database itself. But anything you're doing, you don't put commit to it. It won't be safe. You can just be querying it. It will give you at the moment you use it and you go. But if you put commit, then rollback is more or less like you are undoing some things. You are rolling back. So I can actually roll back to certain time. Like I know that, okay, I begin this work by 1 o'clock and I want to roll back. I can just do a roll back to 1 o'clock. So everything I've done after 1 o'clock will be removed and it will take me back to 1 o'clock. So that's the function of this rollback. So yeah, I can hear you.
If you want to redo what you have rolled back, is it doable?
It's doable, but I don't think it's a begin. I've forgotten the function of this. But in the real sense, we don't need it because except you want to go into be a database. So data analyst is where you stop. Database administrator is have to go and do. Those are the people that are doing all those Oracle things. You know what they are doing right now. Those are the database administrators. So you are more or less focused on managing data, updating, deleting. So you'll be exposed to everything. So you can do what is called backup data. So what is called automatic backup, mental backup, in the sense that you tell the database to do backup every Friday. Every Friday, backup what we've done for the week. So that's just it. Any other question before we go to the next one? So also, as like you know in Excel, so okay, what are the data type you have in Excel?
Numeric.
Data type in Excel. Numeric is more or less like the compound name.
Number.
You have your numeric.
Dates.
You have your date.
Date, Boolean.
Exactly.
Time.
You have your string.
Yeah.
Those are the one you put quotation mark on.
Character.
Yeah. So same thing here. The numeric aspect of it for SQL. So most of the time we use this int.
Integer.
Yeah. We need to specify this data when you're creating your data. So you find the number it should accept. So if you put int and you want to put in decimal, it's not accepted. So you need to specify. So other people can be using all these data types. Most of the time we use int. Then for you have date type, then we have the character. So most of the time you use character type and you use variable character. You use this. This one it contains a lengthy non-unique. Also this. Most of the time you use variable character, you use character. So that's it. So this one will come in handy when you're creating your data. When you're creating it. So when you're creating a table, if I say students, if I say ID, So I would say it should be an integer. I would say it should be so if if this thing is being created and I want to insert anything in it, ID, and insert character, it will be an integer. Then if I come and I say name, and I put character, and I put foreign key there, or we may not even specify, so you just take it and close it. So I can't put anything like date inside this name. It will not accept it. If I put dates and specify dates to it, I can't come and put integer. It will not accept it. So that's when this whole data type comes in when you do your creating a table. So we're just going to expose you to that, creating a table, how to bring in Excel into SQL for you to probably start adding more things to it. Yes. Basically, we talk about this. So basic SQL syntax: create, drop, create table, drop, table, drop, modify, rename, start. So this is quite very, very important. So, and that's where I was talking about that. If your MD should say, please help me to query the database or get me information of sales in Southwest, sales for last week in Southwest. So you need to know, ask the question first. One, sales for Southwest. Where can I get this sales data from? Under which table is sales? Under which database is sales? So you need to ask yourself some basic questions before you deviate into, because if you go into it and you go and give the entire sales for nation, you've actually missed the point, because your boss is asking for sales for last week. So you need to know the table under which sales is being, the database where the sales is being stored. Because, okay, I didn't say it before, collection of database is being stored in this. You can have a database of probably Lagos, database for the database for this. Depends on how your database is. And all these databases combined together is being stored in what? So when they're talking of database, that means I need to go into Lagos, I need to go into you want to do get the sales figure. Once you get it, yes, query it and you've gotten it, you now export it and see and do your management. But the point is, if you don't even know where the database of sales is being embedded, you fall lost. You have to now depend on your database administrator. So you have to ask some certain questions, sales for which one Southwest. So many questions. So once you be able to identify, answer this question, you now go to the next step. Where can I get all this data? The sales data is being stored in also database. Mr. Database administrator, you grant me access into this sales, into this database for you to get out. So you need to ask yourself questions first. Ask the right question first before you start to say you want to even start. So that's the process, ask question, what's the objective, the database, query, then you get your results. Exactly. So this is another very important. SQL command is very case sensitive. John like this is different from this John. And it's different from this John. So I've written John in 4 different ways. It's very case sensitive. So that's why they put here that, and when you type in a command in SQL, you end it with what? A semicolon. That means you're saying, I terminate this query at this point. So they advise you to do cap. I always do also. Tend to do everything I'm querying in tab. But the entry inside those tables, you now have to be very, very careful when you want to mention, when you want to query that it should be equals to certain. Because if it's not seeing it exactly the way it's inside the table, it will not accept it. Each SQL command should be on a separate. You can decide to do it on a separate line. What they meant here is when you want to do select, start means all. So this means, so that's what they are saying here, but in essence, this one may not totally do like you can even still do it. But when it's getting too long, it's more preferable when you're doing the select comes on online from social customer comes on one line. Join it to Kinikon. Then you now, once you put your semicolon, that means you have terminated this entire query. And you can light it, then query it out. Like I said before, there is no space when you're doing this. So you can't do John. It's not going to accept this. We rather put this. So select, if the table name has a space, for example, product name, use, so you have to use, you use this, I think it's on shift beside beside 1. I don't know when it's on your own keyboard. So you use, so if in the table itself that you imported from, when you create it, you won't allow it, but if you import any table from Excel, and the thing is like this, John space, if you want to query it out, you have to do John. You now put this. I think for my own keyboard is beside 1. I don't know for your own keyboard. You want to put it, so you now see it as well. So it's more or less like you're putting it like this. Like this. For SQL, you can only use this character. Then select product name. These are all syntaxes. So any question from this before we go to, I'll show you some.
Sir, please don't clear that one. Sorry, sir.
Oh.
Yes, that is exact, that last part I wanted you to repeat. Sorry to interject, yes.
So what I meant is, sometimes you can bring in Excel into SQL. And you know, because the data is already there, it will accept it. But the problem now comes in when you want to query it. Like, I want to know the salary John Ojo has been taking for. You know, I need to now say, select salary from probably employee, where employee's name is equals to John Ojo. If I put this John Ojo like this, it will not accept it. It will be giving me error. And I have to put like a quotation. But instead of, in Excel, we use this double quotation. But in SQL, my own is before 1. So the keyboard's before 1. That's where you see something small like this. And there's another one like this. So you just put it in front, John Ojo, put it at the back. You will now see it as being 1 because space in SQL is ignorant. So do you understand?
Yes, I do. That's clear now. Thank you, sir.
Question, please.
Okay.
Yeah. You said we should note this when typing SQL commands. Is this generic to all SQL? You know, there are different SQL platforms. We have Postgres, we have SQL Server, we have MySQL, we have different SQLs. So how can we know which one is generic to which, and how can we easily find our way when we are operating on different query language platforms?
So to be very frank with you guys, I may not know the one that is more applicable to it. So to get the answer to that, just quickly make use of it. I'm used to what's it called, MySQL. And I think this for Oracle too, because MySQL and Oracle, they are the same, just the open source version. But for SQL Server, I don't know, maybe this will work. But to make life more easy, just ask Google like how to, if there's a space between 2 in my SQL Server, how do you make it, or how do you turn into a string? So it will give you like a load of things that you now try to. But however, you can try to use this first. If it doesn't work, then just crank on it. I don't use my SQL Server. I don't use other one you mentioned. I only use my SQL. I don't use this. So I won't know when you want to join it or there's a space in it, which particular string or which commands. Probably I can make do research on that, you know. Now I only know what is. Any other question? We're good to go.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So I think right now I will just expose you to, I'll just expose you to, can you see my, see what I'm putting? So okay, let me just start. Um, I have put my own on. So I've already put it on my taskbar here. So can you see my screen? So normally once you've installed it, this is the welcome page that you get. And you can see here, you see root. That is your username because you are like the administrator. So for every administrator is being seen as the root, just like your plant. Once the root is being removed, that means the plant is dead. So, and the database administrator will always be the root user. That means you can undo and do anything to the database. So they always put somebody that is trusted. Don't know company policy, you have to sign some things. Because that's what the HR department will use to query and pay salary. If they've done promotion, everything will go to the database. So the HR manager does not even need to worry himself. He will just tell probably one of the HR officer to say, please give me the salary for this month. Probably there's a way they pay you guys, maybe per day of stores. Excel or you can use the SQL command prompt to just calculate all those things. And imagine the database administrator has added 0 to his own money. He's collecting maybe 700, or maybe he's collecting, he has added 0. That is 5 million. Once they prepare it and they send it, you know, all these things are more automated, and his number, they will just send it, the account will just do it, and number will change. You just say, alert come, the person start rejoicing. So you have to put somebody that is trustworthy. So when you're a root user, you can do and undo, which is the database. So because this SQL server is being stored on your system, it was being seen as the database administrator. And the next one, which is the local host. Local host, probably if you want to connect to, what's it called? Your Tableau, your Power BI, and things like that. These are the things they will request from you. This is local host number. So you just put it and connect. And even connect to probably your Python and the rest of it. So from there, you can now just do your query. So once I click this one, it will take me to the prompt. So to take new ones, so you just come here, create new. Can you see? From this side, create new ones, and you can see it. So from this my side there, you can see, okay, I'm already on this place. On my left hand side now, what you can see here, you can see on top schemas, LBS database club is a database. Marketing is a data on its own. Sakila is a database. This 6 one is more or less like all these system administrative database. That's why it's called SIS. And this, I don't know, how will I pronounce this? Then the last one, word. So collection of this thing, which is the database, is being stored inside your schema. You get. So if I want to see this thing, assuming this thing is not here, if I want to see it and it wants to show me this, I will just say show databases. And I'll put my semicolon. Okay, I'll just highlight this and I'll click. You can see that it has brought everything out inside the database. It brought information schema, LBS, marketing, MySQL, performance schema, Sakila system, this one, everything inside the database. And you can see now, after the one on top of the highlighted show database, you can see blue dots. Just look, if I do something like a mistake, it's going to tell me that is a mistake. You can see that instead of the blue dots, there is a red showing star. So that's when you can also know that probably there's an error in what you're typing. Sometimes it's not always true, but most of the time is. Sometimes you type something, it will show you that there's an error. When you query it, it's still wrong. But most of the time, it's telling you that something is wrong with your query. So you should be conversant with that. So right now, it has shown me databases that we have inside this our schema. And I want to now say, oh, I want to use the Sakila. So what will I do? I will just say use Sakila. So if you can see from my right-hand side, Sakila has been highlighted. I will do another one now. I will do use. You can see now, that means I've committed 2 databases into memory, Sakila and marketing. You can see here is already highlighted that these are the 2 things I've committed into the memory of the database that is likely that I want to use. You get, so these are the first steps of things you should be conversant with. So imagine, say, I want to still use this one. I'll just click on this. It has highlighted it back to Sakila. If I put marketing to highlight marketing, and I will now show all the table inside this. So it has shown me all the table inside the Sakila. So you can see the list of all the tables inside the Sakila. Does it work on Mac? Seriously, that one. No. All this Mac user. It will tell you, say you have come again.
I've tried installing this, but
Mac people, you have come again. God. Seriously, I think that was one of the discouraging things for some people during my sets. Those are using Mac. So I probably Mac will have their I think there is an online one you can be using. I think there is a limitation. I don't know. I think there's an online stuff you can be using. So you are more or less online. You are not the. So just try and ask Google. I think Google should be afraid of this. So we've already queried the tables and it has shown us all these things. So one by one, I can start describing this thing. Like, okay, I know that I have actor table, actor underscore info, I have address. And I want to know some certain things inside this table before me selecting it. I will just do what is called describe actor. So you can see that the data set we are trying to talk about before, this one is called small integer unsigned. When they say no, that means there must be a number that must be there. You can't leave it vacant. I think that number cannot be empty. When they say no, it cannot be empty and it's primary key. You can see a default no. But when they put it for this actor ID, it cannot be vacant. There must be a number inside it. First name, they put variable character, no more than 45. Same thing, you must put something there. Last name, variable character 45, you must put something there. Then what's it called? Last update, time stamp, you must put something there. I think this one is more or less like auto-generate. So if you now want to query what is inside actor, you can just do select. Like I said, all is your times. Once I click this, so imagine this is the data you're looking for. Just click here, export, and see it, city, save it whenever you want to save it, call it. Well, it's already on your desktop.
I want to ask a question. Okay, so say for instance, one of the actors complained that his or her name, or his name, rather anyone, has been misspelled, and you want to edit from this list now that you have selected from. How do you do the editing?
And that's what we call rename.
Rename.
There's a way you can do rename. You know, part of what we said before, you can do rename. You get?
Yes, but can you show how to do that?
You want to jump?
Oh, okay.
We're
I
still
get it.
going there now.
Okay. Sorry.
Just still going there. So this is just the basic things right now that you need to know. So the next class, you now be querying more, be grouping it. That's when you now see like, okay, I can actually do more things. This selects, whereby I will say, select from this where my, what's it called, actors ID is greater than 2, is greater than 5. So you give me those values within those rules. Those are the beautiful things about querying things. So you can actually limit your query to certain things you want. Like I said before, Southwest. So you can limit it to probably the region to the Southwest. depending on the way your database is querying. That's why I said you need to ask questions. You need to know how your database is being structured. And once you have those good knowledge about it, then you now know the syntax to ask. Because once you have that good understanding about the right question you are asking, you can even go online and check and ask Google how to query this something, and it will give you a good understanding the idea. You just come back and change it to what you query it out. But at least you need to have a good understanding of what you are being asked to do before you now say you want to query. So people might have a good understanding of all these syntax. So when they ask them some question, they are doing something. So these are the basic things you need to know about SQL right now, because right now, as what was it called? As a database analyst, you only need all these select this from this place and get it out. You can now use Excel to delete what you want to delete. However, if you've gone more in depth, you can actually query to suit the exact thing you want to query out for you. You can go ahead from there, do your analysis. So I think I want to stop here. I don't want to rush it so that the next class we'll now go into the in-depth. But I don't know. Some people are saying they're having issue with MySQL.
Is another question. Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if you want to like select something again, apart from actor, you want to select another thing, are you going to be exporting as you call this this command, one, like now you have selected from actor, this is your result, then you export, you do same for the others that you want to select from, and then you export. Is that how you're supposed to do it?
No.
Or we can have everything displayed, like the results come out at once?
No. The result cannot come out. Okay. But you can actually join, okay, like I said before, I described the table of what is inside this. I can actually connect actor to actor info address. I will just look for anything that is uniquely linking them together. And I'll get the information I want to. The essence of this thing is you're trying to get certain information from this table. You get, it's not like you needed all the table. If you need all the table, fine. You can query actor, you can query actor information or info, things like that. However, you can actually join these two actor info together. But you cannot query actor, select all from actor, and select all for actor info. No. It will only display one after the other. However, based on the information you want to get from the data, you can actually link some of all these tables together to get your information and your books.
Yeah.
So any other question? So those people having issue with, I don't know, what issue are you having with your download? So probably I will just connect, show you how I did it online. Because it was that time which mentioned it, I have to do an update. Totally forgotten. So I don't know, what issue are you guys having? Let's just look for a way to resolve it. Because by next class, I expect you to have downloaded. As I'm doing it, you need to be doing it. So that's the way to learn this data analysis. Do the way I do. Any question you ask, then you go back home, you devote time, maybe 1 hour. You can do more than 1 hour, fine. And you do practice. You have to practice.
Please, I have a question. Okay. I don't know if the
My question is actually necessary. So, for instance, I've worked with companies that use SAP, 6 Pro, Acumatica. These are 3 ones at least I know. What is the relationship or the essence? How does SQL help in this 3? Because the 6 Pro is another kind of SQL that this environment is strange to me as well. The SAP as well. So if the knowledge of this particular SQL necessary for someone to meet another kind of SQL and still struggle with it?
Yeah, like I said before, I don't know. I've not worked with SAP or the one you mentioned before. But SQL is said is a programming language, is structural query language. So if you have a good understanding about it, and any application you're using at your office has an embedded way whereby there's a data inside it, and the only way to query it, you have to use SQL. So this knowledge will be very, very useful. I've not worked with SAP before, the one you mentioned. But if there's any way that this process inside there stores data and you retrieve data using a command prompt like this, they will most likely going to be using something in the area of experience. So that's what, but softwares have their own way of doing things, but there's a similarities they always bring on board. Just not to make things over complicated for people in the long run.
Yeah.
You get.
Yeah.
So the knowledge of this will be a good one if the software you're using stores data and there's a command prompt like this that you can use to retrieve it. Because you can also do this thing manually by clicking this left-hand side and to give you something like an Excel. But the point there is you may not be able to filter it to your taste based on the question you want to ask. But I know that some software will have all this thing whereby you can just do a click and it will give you in sort of an Excel format whereby you can. But if the software has an embedded way whereby you can actually use something to query it out, I think they'll be using something similar to this.
Yeah, that's exactly what, because it looks easier with some of the ones I've used, not to go through, but the knowledge is actually okay.
No, it is, because there are ways that you can just click and get what you want, but it's going to not give you everything at the same time. But with this knowledge of SQL, you can actually filter it to what you want, and it will give you, and you can do your analysis. It saves you a lot of time.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we are all good with our software, so we can call it a week. So we'll meet next week. Good reading.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you so
much.
much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much.
Thank
You're
you.
Thanks, Robert.
Lovely week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bye.